So many games, of course, given the time of the year that's in it, that have serious playoff implications. One of the ones near the top of the bill is Colts Jags in Jacksonville. Big game for you, Ciaran. You're going to be there in attendance for us, and an exciting one to have. Not much to choose between these teams. Jags have been on a roll, quietly gone around, turning 3 victories on the spin, which has a much improved atmosphere in Jacksonville, and they'll be looking to take down a very shaky-looking Colts over the past couple of weeks, who are struggling to recapture their early season promise.
Yeah, the Jags will never have a better chance to put a stamp on the AFC South. Like you said, I mean, the Jags have won 3 out of 4, or won 3 straight, 4 of the last 5, and the Colts, obviously, we know their struggles, losing 2 straight, and have looked anything but solid. Colts actually, interestingly, have not won in Jacksonville since 2014. A stat I wasn't fully aware of until I saw it, which is kind of testament to how the AFC South has been the last decade. Yeah, huge chance for Jacksonville. I mean, they're going to want to have to get the most out of this game and get that W, because this division is quietly becoming one of the most fascinating in the division. We all talk about the North, the AFC North, and nobody wants to claim a spot in it. Well, the AFC South is doing a very good impression of all that. And nobody had the Texans really given any shot over the last couple of weeks, but they've been clawing back into it. I remember the Texans, I think it was week 2 when they played the Bucs really tight, and they almost found a way to come back. And this is when Baker was in his element and just running up and down the field. And at that stage, I was like, you know what? They're just that perennial kind of also ran. They're almost there, and they're almost quite there, but they're just not there. And for me, the Colts are one of those teams that are going to have to take that kind of frame of mind as well. Since putting up 244 yards and 3 touchdowns in Germany, Taylor's gone 143 yards and 0 touchdowns in 3 games since. And it's not going to get any easier for the Jags. Jags are the best run defense in the league. Just 82.4 rushing yards against per game, and 70. I mean, the other thing is 76% of their touchdowns that they've given up have been passing touchdowns. So things have started to come right for the Jags, and they're really kind of solidifying that spot in the division, in the fact that they're winning games that they would have lost. I mean, we've seen the overtime wins they've had in the last month. Those games are traditionally games that Jacksonville loses. But, they're starting to hum on offense as well. I talk about it all the time. When Etienne and Tootin get the ball and they run for over 100 yards, you can almost guarantee a win. And you can subtly see over the last, probably since the Texans game, Cohen is kind of quietly taking the ball out of Lawrence's hands and putting it on the run game. And we've seen less errors and less errant throws from Lawrence. He's still obviously prone to those, but there's been a lot more of the run game. I think Cohen has put more faith in that, and put more faith in the ability of Etienne and Tootin to kind of not just control the clock, but to kind of keep the other teams on the back foot. Lawrence has been, I mean, he's still only completing about 60% of his passes, and he's I think Cohen's trying to take the ball out of his hand and not be that kind of difference maker in a negative light. For me, the difference is going to be the Jags' run defense. I think Taylor, if the Colts obviously are to have any chance, Taylor's going to have to run up and down the field. We know Daniel Jones has a fibular injury and the story about that. But for me, it's going to have to be what the Jags' run defense can do against Taylor. We all know what he can do. It's going to be good weather in Jacksonville, a nice surface, and it should be a pretty free-flowing game. I think there should be points out there. I think the Colts, last time I looked, Colts are a 1.5 point favorite. I'd probably stay with that. I think this game is a classic field goal kind of feel to it. I think the Jags can hold on. They've got the Colts once more in Indianapolis towards the end of the season, so they're really going to need this when it comes down to tiebreakers and all that other fun stuff towards the end of the season. So, long story short, I think the Jags will just about win this, and it's going to be the defense and the job that Campanelli has done. I think they're just going to dial up all the right plays and keep the Colts on their feet. Colts have not been great. Another statistic, not been great on grass. They lost to the Chiefs on grass, and they've struggled on that surface, and they've struggled outdoors too. So we'll see how they get along. But obviously, I mean, huge props to Jones for getting out there even with that fibula injury. But I think it might be the way that Jags defense is coming at people lately. That might be a tough afternoon for him. So I do like the Jags. I like them by a field goal in this game.
I'm a bit slow sometimes when I'm on the grass myself, but that's a whole different story. Shane, the Colts seem to have offended the football gods. They had a chance a couple of weeks ago to make a statement and put the nail in the coffin of the Chiefs' playoff ambitions. They kind of went conservative, they turtled up, and the football gods don't like that sort of thumbing of the nose, and they seem to have been punished the last couple of weeks. They need badly to kind of get it back on track here because, as Ciaran said, the Texans are coming. The Jags have rounded into form nicely. It's over to you, Daniel Jones, and your Colts to go and get back to where you were.
Yeah, I think the Colts of that particular matchup in Kansas City was a situation where, you came up the ranks to play senior hurling. But then if you're going to play senior hurling, you better play senior hurling. Don't try to play within yourself. You have to try and keep pushing yourself to the extent that they were. And look, one of the biggest differences between the first period of the season when they built up all of the steam versus the last 4 weeks when they've lost 3 games and they had to go to overtime in Germany against the Falcons has just been the form of Jonathan Taylor. I think it was JJ Watt on the comms last week that said when Jonathan Taylor scores a touchdown, the Colts are 7-0. When he doesn't score a touchdown, they lose. Except for I think it was the one game that they won when he doesn't. And another key aspect of that is the fact that they were really, really efficient on first and second down in that early period of the season. The last 4 weeks, they've been very inefficient on first and second down because they haven't got the run game going sufficiently enough. And they try to rely on the Daniel Jones pass game and realize that actually, if you try to get the Jones pass game to be the sort of main thrust of your offense when Jonathan Taylor isn't running the ball well, it becomes much easier to defend and teams have a better time with it. And then that may lead you to start making decisions to go for passes, which are more conservative because they're shorter down the field. And it completely undoes what the Colts are able to do. We saw that in Kansas City. We saw that last week against the Texans. Again, really good defense is playing there. The Colts defense, I think, is going to have to go out and win this game because I'm actually not confident in the Colts offense to do it. In fairness, the Colts are top 5 in pass rush. They're the first most sacks in the league. They held the Texans to 2-5 in the red zone. In fairness, their run defense is pretty solid. Now, in fairness, they haven't faced a lot of sort of 2 tight end offenses in the way that Jacksonville often deploys. So they're not going to, their run, their sort of upfront defense might have a bit more to get around Jacksonville than they have in previous games of the season. So that might be difficult. Brenton Strange, obviously, quite important there. But I think the Jags have enough just to quite simply go and sort of take this pretty early on. The AFC South, by the way, is probably the most slept-on division in the league. I agree with Ciaran earlier. This division always brings out these fantastic matchups and heats up really at the right time. And often the difference makers is one player who comes in as a trade. And this year, and I slagged him off on the trade deadline day, and he's trying to prove me wrong. Jacoby Myers, I think, has had a big impact. He's had 50 yards in each of the last 3 games. He's making big plays at big moments. He's a reason why the Jags were able to score 25 plus points in the last 5 games, and they were really becoming much more efficient in the red zone, was at the same time having a run defense that's in the top 10 in the league in the last 5 weeks. All the pieces are there for Jacksonville to go and do it. And I just don't trust the Colts defense enough to be aggressive enough often enough to give them the real chance to do it. Like the Colts real chance is going to come with some form of turnover or Trevor Lawrence is doing stupid things and then being able to punish afterwards because their run game mightn't necessarily get going on early here. There's a lot that could go wrong for Jacksonville, but if Trevor Lawrence just stays clean and sticks to the plan and doesn't do anything too out of the ordinary, I think we're going to see the Jags atop the AFC South by the end of this weekend.
I would agree with that, and I think for the very same reasons that is why Jacksonville will win. To Baltimore we go next, where the Steelers go to the Ravens. Oh, talk about high stakes here. The AFC North, as we were saying, a division that has 3-4 laggard teams in it. Nobody seeming to want to even end up with a winning record the way they're going at the moment, let alone take it by storm and win the division. Steelers travel to the Ravens, who are 6-point favourites here. Both of these teams coming off the back of letdown losses, both of them really stumbling in recent weeks. It's a question of who you trust to start turning the corner. I think the alarming thing from a Ravens point of view has been the form of Lamar since returning from injury, just not at the level that we'd expect him to be at this time of the year. You look at the Steelers and you think Renegade was booed last week. First signs of calls from the Steelers faithful for Mike Tomlin to be fired he's been under pressure before. He's been in this situation before. Many times we've wondered whether that streak of winning seasons is going to come to an end. They've always found a way. They do seem to be up against it in a way that I don't really remember them being before. And I do have serious concerns about just the Steelers' inconsistency, particularly on defense, where, as we were saying on Monday, they have all these high-paid players. They have all these players who are remunerated at a level where they should be given it 110% every single week. That just hasn't happened often enough. I'd be worried about the toll that the season has taken on Aaron Rodgers as well, still recovering from that left non-throwing hand injury, but that does seem to have hampered him. Man, when he got that hit last week, he suddenly looked every one of his 42 years. It's so striking how young and mobile and agile he looked early on this season, how well he was moving, how well he was able to make those plays out of the pocket that Arthur Smith was demanding from him. The Steelers' offense has just looked more and more moribund in the last few weeks. We mentioned particularly against the Bears, you have a team that had no linebackers. They just didn't seem to be able to scheme up a way. And I know it was Mason Rudolph rather than Aaron Rodgers that week, but they just didn't seem to be able to scheme up a way to take advantage of it. And it just really concerns me that on both sides of the ball, the Steelers seem to have stalled at precisely the wrong time of the season. Obviously, wasn't particularly impressed to see the Ravens get taken apart by the Bengals last week. They also seem to have slumped at just the wrong time. Whose slump is the deepest? Who's able to turn the corner and get out of it the quickest? I don't know which team that I'm necessarily going to put my house on, but I do trust the Ravens to defend their own house just about. I don't think they're quite worthy of being 6-point favourites, but I think they will get it done. Shane?
Yeah, I find this game difficult to read because there are two teams you actually just don't know what form they're going to turn up in actually all four phases of the game. I think the Steelers' offense, one of the big things which has been holding them back is the fact that they have been making a lot of explosive passes. I think in the last 4 weeks, there's only been one play where they've passed the ball over 20 yards and completed it. That doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers trying to play through the injury and play through the criticism doesn't manage to find ways to reignite things. But it's difficult. It really is difficult to see that. And it's funny, after the game in Dublin, Mike Tomlin was like, I think it's a really good thing that we're having our bye week in week 5. And I was like, really? You want to play as many games as early as you can before this Aaron Rodgers thing just starts losing legs. And that's just the nature of the season. And that bye week seems a long time ago now for him. Now, in fairness, like in the previous games, they've been consistently allowed to put up over 25 points. It's not a complete disaster, even though last week against Buffalo, it felt like a complete disaster. And of course, all the pressure is coming on Mike Tomlin and everything else. It's against the Ravens team, but yes, they've got 3 days extra rest because they played on Thanksgiving last week as opposed to Sunday. But it's just unusual in terms of what they're planning on offense because their run game in Lamar Jackson, as in what you can get from him from the run game, isn't what it was. They're not using as many quarterback design runs. When he's scrambling, he's not as effective. The passing game, he doesn't feel like himself. He's making a lot of silly errors, but they're not using Derrick Henry. He only got 10 carries against Cincinnati, which I thought was bizarre. And I still don't know whether they're going to go in and do that because the Ravens have consistently shown us in the last couple of years that they have all the right pieces, but quite often come in with the wrong plan. And I just think that...
I wondered, Shane, to your point there, I think it's a really interesting one. Did the Ravens go into that Cincinnati game with the win bagged? And did they think we need to save our best stuff for the Steelers? We'll do just enough to get through this one, fatally underestimate the Bengals in the process?
It wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't. And I don't know. It just felt like, obviously, this is still a situation where their offensive line isn't playing well. They usually give up 3 or 4 sacks and let Lamar sort of go under a lot of pressure. Things aren't completely rosy, even though there was a tear that the Ravens were on where they were kind of coming back with a vengeance. To me, I think the key for this game is what the Steelers defense does. We've seen the Steelers defense prove a lot of times that they're not worth the money they're getting paid. They're the most expensive unit in the league. Mike Tomlin, of course, getting booed. He's a defensive coach. You want to see some of the attempts at tackling and how bad they let the Bills' run game go through last week. It really would not shock me if they come out this week and played a superb game where they got 5 or 6 turnovers, as they've done periodically this year. The 5 turnovers against New England, the 5 turnovers I think they got against Indianapolis, but in between it's going these sort of quiet runs. And I think that against a Ravens team who have been sloppy when it comes to Lamar, aren't using Derrick Henry enough, have a bad offensive line that I think the Steelers frontline players have enough talent to go and actually put a target on Lamar's back and really pressure him, I think they will just be able to upset the play enough and get enough turnovers. Even if this is like a 10-7 type game, if there's one of those 4 units that I think can put up a good performance today, I think Mike Tomlin and everybody who's telling him you need to leave after being head coach in 2007, and the defense and everybody else, this is the game that's going to shut people up. And I'm trusting the Steelers to go and get this one. I understand I'm in a minority in thinking that, but that's the one unit I think is going to play well this week.
Oh, and they can roar all the way to a 9-8 finish. Ciaran.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens on this. I think they, again, it's a talent thing for me. I think they got too much on offense. Mark Andrews getting a new contract. He's getting hot at the right time, so I like the Ravens.
Saints Bucks next, another quick big game. Nobody got time for that. It's Bucks for me as the 8.5 point favorites. Very hard to look past them. Shane.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Charlie Smith play in Florida for the second week running, but hopefully the Saints offense plays well enough to give him a chance, because they were beyond awful last week. It's funny that when obviously the New Orleans Saints algorithm has gotten onto my Twitter this week, and there's a lot of people pushing the Tyler Shook propaganda, and I'm like, lads, you picked the 5 good throws he's made over 3 games. They look great, but that's just not how that offense be playing. I think they've put up less than 18 points in most of the games they've played this year, and they're not going to put up more than 18 against the Buccaneers. So give me the Bucks here.
Ciaran.
Bucks are 6-1 against the Saints under Todd Bowles. Baker's just starting to get his boys back again. Everyone's getting healthy. Bucky Irvin's back. Godwin. Everyone's training for the Bucks, and you're playing against a team that's got basically Chris Olave as your main weapon. That's not enough for me. It's going to be a fairly easy. I think it's 8.5 point favorite. It's probably going to be a 2 touchdown win for the Bucks when all's said and done.
All right, fabulous Baker boys across the board for us. We're into the 9 o'clock window now, and then AFC West clash, which sees the Broncos travel to the Raiders. Ciaran, the Broncos carrying 7.5 points with them, expected to triumph comfortably in this one, but comfortably is not necessarily how they do things. And in a division rivalry, I wonder, are people underestimating how difficult the Broncos can make things for themselves?
Well, I mean, they have been making things difficult for themselves, but the thing is, they're still grinding out these wins. I mean, it's another overtime win last week. Again, we talked about that earlier in the season, how Peyton was losing these 1-2 point game, these 1-score games, and now he's doing the exact opposite. They're just running the table and not wowing anybody with style points, and not making any headlines with circus catches or 50-yard bombs down the field. But it's the National Football League, and they're winning games, and it's a hard thing to do. That's the old cliche, and that's what they're doing. And Bo Nix is just marching along, doing what he needs to do. Not a huge amount of pressure on him. So far this season, Cortland. It's funny that Cortland Sutton and Mims have been used sparingly, really, and it's really been the ground game that they've taken the most out of. I mean, I can't see anything other than a I don't want to say pedestrian again. I've used it already, but I mean, this Raiders team is there's a paucity on offense. I mean, you got Ashton Jeanty, who's just being destroyed out there. He's being ragdolled behind whatever that O line is, and it's hard to watch this offense. It's hard to watch Geno just getting slapped around too. I mean, he's got 14 interceptions already on the season. It's hard to see somebody like him out there and trust in an offense with him behind center. Yeah, we know about the defense. They're able to make some plays from time to time, but I mean, it's really going to be it's in Denver as well. So for me, it's going to be all Denver. They're just kind of catching that wave right now. They're just coasting along. I'd love to see the Raiders put up some sort of a fight, because again, there's going to be that dysfunction talked about in Vegas with coaching, and we saw all the stuff with Chip Kelly earlier on the week before last. There's going to be questions about Pete Carroll too, I'm sure. Questions about his age, about his ability to keep going at this stage. They're going to want somebody maybe younger, or who knows what's going to go on in Vegas. Craziness follows the Raiders around no matter what city they're in. But for me, the Broncos have got too much across the board. I mean, we all know that defense too. I mean, you put up that defense against the Raiders defense, it's night and day. For me, it's going to be a fairly easy Broncos win. I'm looking across the board to see where any upsets are going to come. But again, like I said earlier, you're looking at teams who are 2-10, 3-9. They're looking for reasons to get fans in the stadium. Vegas is a destination, so they're not going to struggle putting bums in seats. But I mean, the product that they're putting out there is not what people are going to want to see. It's a poor team in Vegas, and I don't think the Broncos are going to have much difficulty taking care of them on Sunday.
Yeah, you stole my whole team there, because I was just about to say it's such a shame that a team based where it is has so little star power, and it has been both fascinating and also poignant watching guys like Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty and Max Crosby doing everything that they can within their power. Absolutely sensational catch by Brock Bowers last week in a losing effort. You know, these guys who continue to show up in the most difficult of circumstances week in and week out. They don't have any problem putting bums on seats in Allegiant Stadium, as you say, Ciaran, because it's visiting teams, fans who go to Vegas for the weekend that keep that place rocking. I think they will be rocked, to your point, by the Broncos, who, as you say, always seem to do just about enough. And, you know, we were saying on the show on Monday, if they were a more experienced team that had Super Bowl success behind them, you'd look at them and you go, this is, you know, a team that's right within its comfort zone, winning in third and fourth gear, and they're ready to ramp it up when they get to the playoffs. Well, we haven't seen them do that yet, and we don't know whether they can do it. But what we are seeing week in, week out is a team with so many playmakers all across the board. You know, I know that people have still got a little bit of a question mark in some quarters about Bo Nix and whether he is the guy who's going to lead you on a deep playoff run, regardless of whether they manage to clinch the number one overall seed or not. But you see those little flashes, like that pass he hit almost off his knees to Franklin in the end zone for the touchdown last week. You see Nick Bonito showing up all over the place on defense and just at the right time to help them clinch that victory last week. That pass rush is formidable, as we were saying in our chat with Ron Rivera, which you can check out on our podcast platforms or check out on YouTube if you get a chance, if you haven't seen it already. How the Broncos are on track to beat the sack record set by the 85 Bears. This is just an absolutely scarifying defense that they're able to put out in the field. The offense doing just about enough, and just about enough isn't enough. That just about enough doesn't need to be an awful lot to beat the Raiders, to the point we've all been making. And it's hard not to see them, even in the realm where they're only winning games by one score and getting last-minute field goals here and there, that they will need to be quite pushed to that level to beat this Raiders team in Vegas and get out with their 12th win on the board, which is hard to believe at this stage of the season. Shane?
Yeah, do you remember the Top Gear cool wall? I'm going to have one now of all the teams where on one end it's the real contenders, then there's the hot streak, then there's the mess, and then at the other end there's the complete frauds. If the Broncos play another 10-7 boring game against the Raiders like they did on Thursday Night Football a few weeks ago, I think on Berlin week, I'm moving them back towards the fraud zone. But I have a funny feeling that's not going to happen, and they're going to come away with one of the more comprehensive wins of the season.
We're streaking! We never miss a genuine opportunity. Right, we'll take a quick break.